All right, it looks like we are live and running. So welcome everyone to our very first live broadcast from the Stop Yulin podcast. And here today with Jon Barocas of K9 Global Rescue, a US 501c charity, who will be walking us through the recently announced ban by the Center for Disease Control on the import of dogs into the US from over 112 countries. I think it might be more than that, including China, Vietnam, Thailand, and Cambodia, four very big dog meat trade nations. The ban comes into effect on July 14th, 2021. So for those viewers who are not familiar with K9 Global Rescue, I'm just going to talk a little bit about this organization, fantastic organization. It was made up of a dedicated group of former combat veterans. Jon is with us today, and working with volunteers in cooperation with rescue organizations, government agencies, and disaster relief agencies worldwide to put an end to the brutal dog meat trade and rescue animals victims of extreme cruelty and abuse. So thank you so much, Jon, for agreeing to come on the show today and speak to us about the ban from the CDC. I know it has a lot of people worried, understandably so, because a lot of rescue organizations working in those countries are seeing their operations really challenged. You can imagine that when you rescue dogs from the meat trade and you have these dogs in China, for example, if you're not able to fly those dogs out and to their adoptive families, it increases overhead costs and increases, the mouths to feed, to take care of. And it's just, it's very challenging in an already challenged environment caused by COVID-19. So Jon is so nice. He's going to share his expertise with us today. I will say that to viewers, you are able to post your questions in the chat box. We're going to be taking a look at the chat box after we go through our discussion. And Jon will be more than happy to try to answer them as best as he can. And so go right ahead and post your questions in the chat box. So I thought, Jon, well, I'll let you say hello to everyone. Hey.
Hello, everyone.
And I know some of your followers and dedicated donors to your organization are with us today. So welcome all of you. I thought it would be apropos for me to read the statement from the CDC directly from their website to give viewers at home a little bit of a better idea of what is the ban in fact. And so on June 14th, 2021, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in the Department of Health and Human Services released the notice of temporary suspension of dogs entering the United States from high-risk rabies country. Through this notice, CDC is informing the public that effectively July 14th, 2021, it is temporarily suspending the importation of dogs from over 112 countries in Africa, Asia, Middle East, Eastern Europe, and Americas and Caribbean. So a lot of countries. The CDC estimates that 6% of all dogs imported into the United States arrive from countries at high risk for dog rabies. Inadequately vaccinated dogs are not protected against rabies and are a public health threat. Rabies is fatal in both humans and animals, and the importation of even one rabid dog could result in the transmission to humans, pets, and wildlife. Dog rabies has been eliminated from the United States since 2007. I also read on their website that there is a way for people to apply for a CDC dog import permit if your dog is in one of those high-risk countries. But such approvals may be granted on limited case-by-case basis at CDC's discretion. If your request for advance approval to import a dog is denied, CDC's written denial will constitute final agency action. No appeals will be allowed. So with that being said, one of my first questions for you, Jon, is what, in your opinion, and you have a lot of knowledge and insight, what do you think led the CDC to put in place this ban?
Well, first of all, I want to clarify the fact that even at 6%, if one dog out of 1,000 dogs has rabies and enters the country, that is a great risk to humanity, to people, to animals, not just dogs, but rabies spreads to every animal that we know of. So it's a challenge. And what's led to this was over the past, I want to say the past 5 years, it's gotten particularly bad, where groups would post dogs that they either were street dogs or shelter dogs or dogs off of meat farms or whatever, and they would raise money, adoption fees, flight fees, and they would take their whatever fee, and they would try to find adopters or fosters, but most of the time adopters in the United States.
Oh, yes.
That led to the fact that some of them, one, they're not nonprofit groups. They saw a profit in picking up stray dogs. They saw that they had a business model that didn't require them to have a large overhead. They would get the dog, or if the dog was in a shelter, they would take a picture of the dog and use that and raise funds. When the dog came to the United States, there were many recorded incidences of dogs that the paperwork did not match what was being said when the dogs came through Customs and Border. And it did not meet the criteria for the dog to come to the US. Many dogs were coming in, I shouldn't say many, some dogs, especially from Eastern European countries, were coming in and they had parvo. They were not of age to come to the United States. They were put into crates for transportation with other dogs. And on the paperwork, it would have that the older dog was the mother or the father or a sibling of this dog, and which was not the case at all.
Not the case, yeah.
CDC, but this all started with Customs and Border.
Yeah.
They recorded all these instances, and there were dogs that were turned away at JFK, at Chicago, San Francisco, Seattle, LA. Dogs that were turned away because the paperwork didn't match and they could not verify.
Yeah.
And physically, a lot of these dogs looked sick. They looked unhealthy. So what was happening was they were making reports on these dogs. And as it turned out, there were a lot of groups that were doing this for profit. Nothing more. They didn't really care about the welfare of the dog.
No.
They cared about money, and that's why they were doing it. And that said, there are so many other rescue groups out there that are ethical, that are that are in it only for one reason. It's not to make money. It's not to pay their employees. It's not to pay the executives of the company. It is to save these animals. That's what they're in it for.
Yeah.
Groups are the ones being hurt the most through this ban. Now, I will say, I agree with part of the ban. I don't agree with the whole of the ban.
Yeah.
I think that they went way too far. There are countries on the list that there's never been one case, and in the last 20 years, they haven't even had a recorded case of rabies in a dog in that country, but they are on the list.
Are you able to mention which countries are you referring to?
If I go through it country by country,
there's quite a few. There's quite a few.
There are quite a few.
Okay. Okay.
But there are countries on here that clearly abuse this, and it's not the country itself. It's the organization that is sending these dogs. One rabies could cause a problem that would be devastating, which would shut down every rescue organization bringing dogs from other countries.
Exactly.
So I agree in part that these groups, and some of them will be weeded out now because these businesses, as I call them, especially in Eastern Europe, Russia, some of them in Asia, they can't, their business is shut down now. What are they going to do? So they can't send these dogs as of July 14th. So I've seen in the last 2 weeks, I've actually been sent videos of dogs. We're desperate. We have to get this dog out, whether it was Russia, whether it was the Ukraine, wherever it was. And the thing is, it didn't make any sense to me what they were doing to try and rush to get these dogs out, because when I saw the dog in the video, it was not in a bad situation.
Okay.
It was most likely, and shelters are pretty easy to identify. I had a couple of shelter cases where they were claiming the dog was a meat farm dog. Butcher was there, and the butcher was going to kill the dog right now. This has happened many times. Well, it was very obvious that from the video and the pictures,
that was not the case.
Shelter. It was in the shelter with a nice pillow and a blanket. And I'm sitting here going, nah, butchers don't go to shelters. They have to go to shelters. They can go to a meat farm and pick up the dog. You know, there's nothing.
This was in South Korea, I believe.
The past incidents, the past two that I've had to deal with were in South Korea. One was coming from China, and it was they had a group of small dogs, and they were trying to tell me that these dogs were in danger. And when I went in anonymously and started to question where they were, you know, the whole everything. When I can't get an answer that
red flag,
it is an immediate red flag. I said, so can we do a live broadcast right now? Can you FaceTime with me? Let me see this dog right now, because I'm trying to decide whether I want to adopt it or not. And when they go, oh, you know, we can't do that right now. The dogs they're off doing something, or they're being fed, or and it happens repeatedly. I'm sitting here going, okay, you know what?
This is, BS. Yeah, it's BS.
Dog sitting in a shelter waiting for that person to go to the shelter to pay the fee to get the dog to send to
at an inflated price.
At a they're paying
very inflated. Yeah.
You know, our experience is that you can pay $50 in most of these shelters in South Korea. There are no kill shelters in Korea as well. There are kill shelters, but a lot of them are no kill. They'll feed the dog, they'll spay the dog, neuter the dog, they'll give it vaccinations, they'll do everything, and they're not going to sell the dog to a butcher. It's
not the way it works, and it's painting a picture that is not in touch with reality.
Right. Now, these dogs are all vaccinated. Then you have the other side of it where dogs are not. They're getting picked up on the streets. Especially in Eastern European countries and Russia. They're getting picked up on the streets. They're not being held for 30 days. They're being held in I've seen courtyards. I've seen, property where the dog's being held. And if that dog doesn't get adopted, it's released back to the street.
So it's like a holding pen until they get the money, right?
That's exactly right. Now, I've also it's been reported to me twice now, or no, actually more, where several people sent money for the same dog. And then they were told, oh, the dog got sick and sorry, we've got to hold him another 30 days, or the
Oh,
dog is dead, had died of this disease, and,
oh my
you know,
God.
and they don't get their money back.
We used your money to take care of him. We were hoping we could
That's
recover
exactly what
him. Oh
they're saying.
my God, it's horrible.
They're saying the money that you sent for this dog went to caring for it because we couldn't send it to the United States without it being healthy. So we used this money to care for the dog.
Oh my God. And they prey on people's
They prey
sympathies and
on the emotion, the
yeah,
heartstrings. They tug on that heartstring, and it's a real problem.
yeah.
And it's hurting all of us. It's hurting all of
The
the
good people that are doing the right thing. Yeah,
ethical
yeah,
rescues that are
yeah,
actually out there doing the right thing. Now, Canine Global Rescue is not. We're not an adoption agency. We're not a foster agency. We've been forced into that in the past several years when we've shut down meat farms,
yeah,
and we couldn't get cooperation from people in South Korea, especially, to
yeah,
help us, because they may have committed to helping us, and then they turned around and said, you know what, we've got our own dogs and we've got to take care of these.
yeah,
So it turned us into an organization of an adoption agency, which we really
yeah,
didn't want. But we tried not to bring dogs to the United States unless they were adopted first. But there were several cases where we just needed to get the dogs out of Korea.
yeah,
So we brought them and had fosters already set up for them. And
yeah.
then every one of those dogs was adopted out over a period of time. I think the
Mm.
most that it ever took for us to get one of the dogs out of foster was 4 months.
Yeah, but just to clarify, that's not your goal. You're trying to end the dog meat trade, and
Right.
so
Our goal is to end the dog meat
yeah,
trade, and the cat meat trade,
yeah,
and the donkey meat trade, and the
okay,
horse meat trade.
yeah,
We're not just solely focused. If we come across a situation, let's say with donkeys,
yeah,
then we will stop that situation with whatever means is necessary.
yeah.
The ban does not include horses, does not include.
No,
It doesn't include monkeys. It doesn't include donkeys. It
for the
doesn't,
time being, it's only
for the time.
specific to dogs. Yeah.
It didn't even include cats. Cats
No, that's
carry
it.
rabies. That's
I've
why a lot of this
I
doesn't make
know.
sense, because cats can carry rabies just as badly as a dog. But the problem is, cats aren't imported into the United States at
At the
the.
same rate, and they have not uncovered the same issues with cats. So I guess that's why.
You can carry a cat. You can carry 2 cats in a carry-on.
Yeah,
Goes under the seat, right? So
on the plane,
on
exactly.
the plane. So when you're coming off the plane and you have your cat with you, you're not getting checked
Yeah.
by a border.
Well, when I read that, I was like, oh, well, this is a good opportunity to fly all the cats from Yulin. But, it's less in demand, and that's the honest truth. Unfortunately, I mean, most people are dog lovers, not necessarily cat lovers. But before we move on, I have an immediate question, because you said that, these, obviously illicit operations, people running this as a business or trying to deceive the public. What would you say are ways that you can prevent yourself from being frauded by such an
Well,
organization?
the first one is ask them for references in the United States.
Okay.
Ask them for somebody who adopted one of their dogs that you
Okay.
can talk to in the United States, an American, not a
Yeah.
Russian,
Yeah.
not somebody from that country, but an American. Verify that they
Yeah.
actually received the dog in the time, the money was sent, the dog was released, the dog came healthy.
Yeah.
Talk to they If they are legitimate, they will give you references. They will
Yeah.
say, Joe Blow in Pennsylvania. Here, call him.
And it's not Dimitri. My
Yeah,
friend Dimitri will vouch for us.
right. And that's why I always say get 2 at least.
Yeah.
Get 2
That's like
at
a
least.
good idea. And also, like you mentioned before, is ask to see the dog, like ask questions. And if they're not responding,
Right.
Well,
If the dog is in their possession at that time, then, if they're going to FaceTime with you,
yeah,
if they are at a shelter, you're going to see it's a shelter.
yeah,
If they are at their facility, you can ask them to see the entrance of the facility, and to take a tour of the facility with the dogs, because you have many friends who may want to adopt. So why don't
yeah,
you tell
there
me
you
the whole
go.
thing, right? So
Yeah,
there are a lot of ways before you hand over your money to someone. And there are dogs in needs. Sarajevo was in Russia during the Olympics. There were a lot of dogs that got adopted and got out, street dogs, and not because they were with an organization, but because athletes would see these dogs and they would go up to the dog, and the dog would run up to them and just,
they fell in love.
And they fell in love with these dogs. I mean, certain individuals, athletes, were adopting 2 or 3 of these dogs and getting them, but they followed every rule that they had to.
Yeah, and they weren't with an organization. That's the important part.
Not with an organization.
Yeah, it's
but they worked with an organization. Once they figured out, I want this dog, they found an organization to help them facilitate
the paperwork and all the logistics. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so at this point, it's strictly on dogs, and the ban is on import into the United States, not Canada. Canada has not put such a ban in place, as far as you know?
No.
Okay.
And the CDC operates, it's a US government agency. So Canada has very strict importation laws already in place. The passport book for dogs that show the label of the parvo, the distemper, the rabies. All those have to be in the passport book. It's been pretty strict and organized, much more so in Canada than it has in the US. And for that reason, the US became a target, and the CDC, having been made aware of what was going on in these other countries, especially in the past year with COVID, there were a lot of scams that were happening to get dogs out. Dogs were arriving and they really weren't healthy. I know of one dog that came over that had pneumonia.
Oh my God.
You don't put a dog on a flight knowing that it has pneumonia.
No.
Don't do that. That's, you can get this dog healthy. You don't have to send it to the United States. So the dog ended up in LA, and because of the pneumonia, it was held in the facility, in the animal facility in LA at LAX for over 6 months.
Oh, yeah, that's what I read. It's causing so many delays, and the dogs keep getting sicker and they die. A lot of them die.
Not getting the care once they end up in that facility. So and then you've got some advocates who, these people contact, whether it be South Korea, China, whatever, and they contact advocates and say, oh my God, these dogs are supposed to be, we've got a foster set up, they're having problems. Can you help us get this dog out of the detention? And there's nothing they can do. I've had calls in the middle of the night, JFK, oh, we've got 3 dogs and they're all being held. They won't let them into the country. Well, once I found out and talked to Customs and Border, finding out that the paperwork was not correct.
There's nothing that can be done at that point.
The dog either is going to stay in that facility or it's going to be sent back. And if it's sent back, it's a process. And normally
it takes a while.
It takes a long time.
It's now just terrible.
And we've had success getting dogs out in LA and San Francisco out of detention, getting the paperwork right, having a flight volunteer bring an adopted dog over that's being adopted by someone else creates a problem, because when the flight volunteer comes in, if they're not trained in how to answer questions, oh, this is my dog. And it doesn't have to be their dog. It's never been that way.
No, organizations don't ask you to lie and pretend that it's your dog. You're flying with the dog, you know.
You're accompanying the dogs to its new owner, right?
Yeah.
So when they say, oh, it's my dog, because they don't understand, they don't speak English very well, whatever, and then they start asking questions, and you can't, as a flight volunteer, you've opened up that door.
Yeah, that's it. Now there's scrutiny, and if it doesn't stand up to their scrutiny.
Right. So this dog was, you're telling me that you adopted this dog. When did it have its first vaccination? When did it have its second vaccination? It's on the paperwork. If you don't know, you've got a problem.
Yeah, you're not the owner, you're lying to us, and now we have to worry. Yeah, exactly. So I guess reputable nonprofits, I know Soi Dog started a petition on the ban, and I don't know if it's going to be effective at overturning this ban.
Let me ask you, Dave, how many petitions have you seen that have been effective?
Unfortunately, not that many, I have to say, but I always say, petitions, I sign them, you know, just as a symbol of, you know, support. But, you know, for the most part, they do nothing.
Expectations cannot be that, oh, you know, and I love Soi Dog. You know,
yeah,
Jon,
they're wonderful. Yeah.
Right. And again, they adopt out dogs. And they close farms and things like that, but mostly they're an adoption rehoming placement service.
Yeah.
We, on the other hand, you know, go in, and if there's a situation where it's a slaughterhouse or a butcher, and we can, as we say this, disrupt what is going on, then we do that.
Yeah.
But we really don't want to get involved. If it's a situation where we know that we have to get the dogs off that property, then we will work with groups, and the dogs become their property, their responsibility, whereas we're there to stop it. But at the same time, one of the things that we're known for is disease mitigation. We can vaccinate. We'll go in and we'll vaccinate, 100 dogs, whatever it is. We'll go in and we'll vaccinate the dogs for everything that you can think of. I mean, when we saved dogs in South Korea the last time, we had to use 4 veterinary clinics for all the dogs. And once they were in those facilities, we had every dog vaccinated for everything possible. We recorded everything. We had the labels for everything. It was so when the dogs came to the United States, not one problem. Not a problem, nothing. Yeah. And the thing was, we weren't trying to raise the money when the dog was overseas. We were getting the dog to the US and to a foster, and then from there, and our group, and there are some other groups like us, our fees are based upon whatever it is that you can afford. We don't want to deny somebody, a loving family, a dog, because they can't afford it. So we have a foundation of donors, a base, and that money goes to helping us, you know, provide care with dogs while they're in the foster, and also covers our expenses, because it's
not cheap. Not cheap.
When you're saving 50, 100 dogs, whatever, the expense can add up quickly. People, oh, you raised $25,000. Where's the money? Okay, break this down. Completely break this down.
Oh wow! It's like someone who says, "I donated $20. What happened?" You know, it takes a lot of money, and I'm assuming you would agree with many of the nonprofits I had on the podcast, and they say, if anything, monthly donations are much more appreciated, or it helps them, because you never know when the next dollar is coming from, so it's hard for you to plan, you know, can I rescue these dogs? Like, we don't know the funding situation. So if people at home, oh my God, who do we have here?
This is Jessie. Jessie was one of the 3 that I have who was rescued. We rescued her off a meat farm in South Korea.
Oh my
She had
God.
pneumonia, was 13 pounds and was ready to die. And she is now part of my family.
Oh
And,
my gosh, she is gorgeous. How old
yeah,
is she by now?
well, by all estimates, she's probably close to 3.5 to 4.
Oh, she's a daddy's girl.
Yeah,
You can
right.
tell.
Yeah, come here. You get down. Come here. Right. Come here, Gracie. Come here,
Oh,
Gracie.
Gracie. Everyone's heard about Gracie's
Everybody knows
story.
about Gracie. Rescued from the Moran meat market.
Oh,
Minutes literally before she was going to die. We tricked the owner of these dogs into
releasing her.
yeah, we pulled up a picture on the phone and said, you stole this dog. This is our dog. And it was just a picture of a border collie. So
Oh,
we will
wow.
not pay for a dog. We're not going to pay for the dogs. Jessie, we were at the meat farm with the environmentalists, their environmental agency and the local police. And we spotted the dog. My partner spotted it. We knew, we had it on video. We knew that this was a stolen dog because you don't see an English Llewellyn setter.
It's very strange. Yeah.
You just don't. Gracie had to have been stolen too, because border collies are very rare in that situation as well.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's just it's one of those things. But
can I ask you about the ban? Because we agree, we both agree there's a need for it, you know,
yeah,
obviously to prevent some of these, you know, illicit operations from exporting their dogs, I should say. But if you could consult with them, how would you revise the ban to be more fair towards the good people that are running legitimate operations?
Well, that's the problem. In talking to my contacts at the CDC, how do you differentiate who's good, who's bad? Just because we're a 501c3 in the United States doesn't necessarily qualify us as being reliable or ethical.
Ethical, yeah.
There's organizations that are 501c3s which they're not ethical. So the question that I was actually asked by one of the people at the CDC was, if you were going to change, what would you change? Who would you change on the list? And I said, well, one, I would go back through these countries and see if there has been a recorded actual case of rabies within the last 20 years, within the last 5 years. Go see if you're going to put a ban, just a blanket ban.
Yeah.
Do the research and before you do it on some of these countries, because like in this on this sheet,
yeah.
I mean, they even have Cuba on here. I don't know who's importing dogs from Cuba. I've never seen a dog come into the United States from Cuba.
No, not really.
You got Cuba on the list. I mean, you can't even get a cigar from Cuba.
I guess they applied it to South America. There was a case, so all of South America, let's just ban it.
I mean, yeah, and you know, but Eastern European countries. I mean, first of all, you have Jordan. There was a reported case in Jordan when we were doing work in Jordan 4 years ago, that a girl got bit and died of rabies. Turned out to be completely false. She died of sepsis when she was bit by the neighbor's dog because she went into the yard. The dog was not rabid. What they did was, instead of leaving the wound open, which is what you do with dog bites, they stitched the wound up, and she and that's what happened. It wasn't rabies. Rabies had nothing to do with it.
And that's not the same as
list. And there's been there has been no reported case in Jordan of dogs with rabies. Why is Jordan on this list? You know, you go to some of these other countries. Afghanistan, a lot of servicemen were leaving Afghanistan. There's a lot of dogs that are going to be left in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
That should be coming here. They've been cared for. They've been, you know, these soldiers have cared for them. They've adopted 2 or 3. They're just waiting to transport them. Guess what? They can't get it out.
Yeah.
And there has to be specific regulations in place. You can't just do a blanket ban and say we're gonna ban all these countries.
No,
Korea's not on this list.
I agree with you completely, and it's something that can be easily verified.
Right.
My other thought on that was, you take, for example, Soi Dog, you take, for example, Canine Global Rescue, and you can present records of all these dogs that were flown into the US with 0 problems, clean as a whistle record. And those should be exceptions, you know, like
an organization should be able to apply.
Yes.
Exception, not an individual, an organization, because they've now changed the rules on how many dogs can come in, you know, the whole thing. I mean, there are new rules on dog limitations. Before there was no limit. Maximum of 3 personal pets for 1 trip only. Can dogs be imported for resale, adoption, rescue, or transfer of ownership? Now, when when we rescue a dog and we bring it here, it's not for sale. No. It's for adoption, and the ownership will get transferred, especially because we chip the dogs.
Yeah, right? So that's right.
That has to be transferred. It used to be yes. Now it's just a blanket no.
Yeah, no. That's right.
No. Rescue? No. Doesn't matter. A blanket no.
Is there something like letters of appeal? Like what could we do to support what you're proposing to the CDC? I'm assuming we could draft a letter, from you, add our name.
Yeah, well, the discussion that I had with them was based around the fact that this is a temporary ban. What do you think a petition is going to do when it's a temporary ban? What do you think? Why would you argue with a temporary ban? That's the answer. And when I said, well, how long does temporary mean?
Yeah.
I said, are you guys looking at banning dogs for,
1 month? It's minimum of 12 months. That's a long time.
12 months. Yeah. But is it going to be 2 years now? When do you decide that it's okay again?
Yeah.
So what I was told was that they are reformulating what their process will be. So within 12 months, we're going to have a whole new set of rules.
That was one of my questions. I was like, what is it going to take for them to lift the ban? Like, what are they waiting for in terms of, like those operations can apply again at that point if they lift the ban? Like there should be, like you said, more of a revised regulations on import of dogs. And so, this should include what you proposed. Yeah.
This is how they got control of it, right? This is how, because it was spiraling out of control, especially with those Eastern European countries and some other countries, Asian countries, and organizations mostly. This is how they got control of the situation.
Yeah.
So now what they're looking at is the effectiveness of this, number one. Number 2 is the length of time that it's going to take to revise these rules so that they fit into a mold that they can once again present to the public. They understand that rescue organizations, humanitarian rescue organizations, they cannot keep doing this. But here's the other problem. You're signing petitions to get this removed. There's another group that I heard about that is signing petitions to make this permanent. The backyard breeders, the people who say that bringing vicious dogs from Korea. Yeah, my Jessie.
She's real vicious.
and honestly, in all the time that I've had, the dogs that from Korea or China or Cambodia or Thailand that I've seen in 30 years, I haven't had one vicious dog. What I've had was a dog that is afraid.
Yeah.
right?
Traumatized.
Some of them, like my Apollo, whose jaw was broken, tail was broken, they were traumatized. So, he loves me and he'll cuddle with me, but another man shows up. He may sniff him, but he's not going to go near him.
No.
They're not vicious. See, so this other group now is, they're promoting the fact that, yes, this is what you need to do because we're bringing in these sick dogs from Korea who've got coronavirus and they've got rabies.
Yeah, they're trying to, justify that. Based on nothing, based on no evidence.
That is right. And so I got into a pretty heated discussion with one person. And I showed them a picture of my dogs. And they said, don't lie to us. You didn't rescue these dogs. So
don't lie to us.
I showed them the videos of the dogs. Oh, that's not the same dog. What? So
wow.
Now so it's just one step every single time that you're going to say, so now this isn't the same dog. Okay. All right. But even though I've got proof of that, you're going to discount it. Okay. So here's the problem. We've got the CDC who put a blanket ban, except for South Korea, and we should talk about that.
Yes, that's my other question. Yeah.
and they've got a blanket ban. Then you've got organizations and individuals signing petitions for them to remove a temporary ban, which the CDC is like, we did this temporarily.
But I would say not remove it, revise it, because it's not fair. Yeah.
They're going to revise it, but it's going to take a long time because it's a government.
And they should take public consultation on this. They really should.
They're a government agency.
Yeah.
We won't do that. I would love to be involved somehow.
Yes. But like a committee of people that are, have experience. Okay. I'm dreaming.
Yes. And then you've got the other people in organizations which are saying ban this forever, right? Don't let any dogs come in.
But you have to look at their hidden agenda. Every time somebody's trying to push something is because they want to benefit from this, this ban because they're dog breeders, local dog breeders.
Listen, if you stop importing dogs that you're paying,
thousands of dollars for, and they're like, we want that money. We want this to end, like it's taking away our share of the market,
livelihood. And okay, let's talk about South Korea.
Yes. Why is South Korea not on the list? We all know they have rabies, right? They have a dog meat farm industry worth $2 billion a year.
So let's talk about politics for a second.
Okay.
There has never been and never will be an embargo of goods coming from South Korea because they're our close ally because of China and North Korea. So the minute that you say the CDC was probably told, do not include their name on this list. You include their name on this list, we could have some real problems going forward with trade, with economic impact.
Okay.
China, they don't care about China and that thing, right?
No.
Cambodia, what impact do they have? Vietnam, what impact do they have? Thailand, what economic impact do they have on us?
Yeah.
South Korea, on the other hand, you start saying, oh, where does it stop? We're going to ban you from animal, right? You're going to be on this list of banned countries.
Yeah.
Bad, you're bad, you're bad. That's all that they could. So
that's how it's received. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's why of all the countries, South Korea is not on the list, which makes no sense at all. And to be quite honest, has opened the door, especially since this announcement, but even before that, for groups who claim to be saving dogs from the dog meat industry, from the trade. They're claiming that even though they're getting dogs from shelters.
Mm-hmm.
It is a business.
Yeah.
A lot of these groups started out with really good intentions. Found out that they couldn't operate because they didn't have money. They didn't have money coming in, right?
Yeah.
all of a sudden they saw one group or another group, and these groups were going to shelters and getting these dogs, and they were paying $50 for the dog. And oh wow, wait a second, I'm making $1,000. Well, US.
That's a nice profit.
Where's my overhead? What overhead do I have? So now I can go to the shelter, make this video, and say, oh my, this dog is going to be killed in 3 hours. The butcher's lined up outside. Please help us. Please save this dog. And again, the dog's in a shelter being taken care of. And so that appeals and pulls and tugs on our heartstrings.
Yeah.
But I cannot show video of meat farms because it doesn't just tug on your heart. It once you see it,
it's scarring. Yeah, very scarring.
It can be extremely scarring. It can be, because if you're looking at your dog and then you're looking at this image of these meat farms, the slaughterhouses, it's
unspeakable. It's unspeakable. Yeah.
So if you're going to go adopt a dog from a shelter, hell, there are a lot of shelters in the United States that need help.
Yes, exactly. Let's.
If you want to save a dog from the dog meat trade, that's different.
Exactly. Those are victims of extreme cruelty. And, if anyone at home wants to get an idea of what it's like for a dog on a dog meat farm in South Korea, you can go Google Stop It. It's a campaign that was done by CARE in South Korea. And you have evidence of just how horrible it is for dogs.
And we've worked with CARE and a few other groups in South Korea who we know where their hearts lie. Kawa, who we went to their facility, and they take care of older dogs and disabled dogs and dogs that have been thrown away, basically. People say they see this, they hear about the dog, and they say, oh, let's nuke the country, let's nuke them, nuke all the Koreans. Well, that's, this percentage of the Koreans that are doing it. And then you have these other Koreans who are trying to stop it, but it's such an economic industry there.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And that's why I say, just like I can't go to my government and say, stop the meat industry, stop the animal agriculture industry. Why? Because our economy is tied into it. It's a huge part of our GDP. Well, in South Korea, that's the same thing. They make a lot of money off the dog meat farms. It's a big industry. And I'm curious because we had a conversation prior to this, and you told me that you believe that some of the rescue groups that are operating in China or one of those restricted countries are not going to try to bring their dogs in through South Korea since it's not on the ban list. But tell me a little bit how that's going to work, because it's going to involve double vaccinations and that sort of thing.
So word on the street, if you want to say that, because Korea wasn't on the banned list, it's a gateway. And one of the things that we're watching closely right now are dogs that could eventually make their way from Korea or from China into Korea.
Okay. Stay
in Korea 2 months, 3 months at a holding facility that would be set up by some groups from the US. They would, because the health certificate and the vaccination certificates would be in Chinese originally. They now will double vax the dogs, new health certificate, and the dogs will come through. They're originally from China. You'll think they're from Korea, but they originally were from China. And it's not, Korea doesn't have enough dogs that this is going to happen.
That's gonna it's not very good to double vaccinate a dog. It could be bad for their health, I imagine.
Yeah, it is very bad for their health. And here's what I would recommend, and if anybody from any US groups are on this live
podcast,
I would concentrate in South Korea. I'm not saying take your efforts away from China or Vietnam but for right now, while this ban is in effect, concentrate on South Korea. Get as many dogs out, close as many farms as possible, and again, if you want to close a farm, don't pay. There are other ways to do this, and I know that there are groups out there, and I'm not going to name them, but they pay, to close down a farm.
Yeah.
And as I've explained to them, even though they think they have an airtight contract, the money flows to nephew, and he opens up a farm under the idea that if I open up a farm, guess what? My uncle got bought out. Now I can use that money to open up.
Yeah, and it just keeps going and going and snowballing into money making scheme. Yeah,
it is a money making scheme on that side, and then it's a money making scheme on the rescue side too, because they're using the fact that they closed down a farm to raise money in donations. And I want to you touched upon the monthly donation thing before.
Yeah.
We have some very loyal people who pay, who put in monthly donations.
Yeah.
At one time, our donations are down 90% on a monthly basis.
Because of COVID.
Because of COVID.
Yeah.
We've seen a cancellation, even if it was $5 a month, or if it was $25, or if it was $50. We actually had someone who was doing $200 a month. Things, because of COVID, finances changed.
Yeah, some people lost their job. Yeah.
Two, they think that we're not doing anything because it was COVID, which was not true, because we still have expenses and everything. Just like other groups, the same thing. So our donations fell 90% in the past year and a half. 90% on our monthly donations. Yeah. And then we have other people who have been generous enough that they would, whatever they could afford. And they do that. And I know that rescue groups in America that are in the same situation, because I've talked to them and we've communicated.
Yeah, everyone's hurting a little bit, a little bit, a lot.
Yeah, and none of our expenses went down. I mean,
no, that's the reality.
The only expense that went down was our travel. But other than that, the care that we provide for the dogs in Korea still, the research that we're doing, all the things, buying the vaccinations that we need to have supplied there, all of that expense is still there.
Yeah.
So
it's like a fixed overhead, but then reduced donations. So there's a big gap to be filled. And in all fairness, a lot of the rescue organizations that are saving these dogs in China, for example, their donation also were cut, a lot of them, lost donations, yet they can't even export their dog. They can't even fly them out. So they have to keep the dog there in their facilities. And honestly, it cripples them. They can't keep rescuing dogs,
So you look on this list of countries and you see who isn't on the list and who's close to China. Well, close to China.
Yeah.
Korea's right next door.
Yeah.
Not on this list. So I can see some organizations going in and renting land, building temporary facility, and bringing these dogs through Korea from China into Korea to the US. And and that's sad because there's so many dogs in Korea.
Already. It's already
there. But
they don't need that.
No. It'll look like the dogs are coming from Korea, but they're actually coming from China. Now, I don't anticipate that's going to happen for a while. And I've actually put into motion to kind of stop that. But we'll see what happens.
Cross our fingers.
I can't guarantee that I'm going to be effective in it. I hope that
can only try, right?
I hope that what I have put before the government
will carry its weight. Yeah.
And in Korea, it's difficult enough because you have a component there that says, oh, more dogs coming into the country. That may be a good thing. There'll be healthy dogs and there'll be good meat.
Ah, yeah, I didn't even think of that. Didn't even think of that. Because a lot of these organizations, they don't have footprint in Korea, so they won't have necessarily the oversight.
Nope.
No. And I thought also, okay, it's good that Canada is not on the list. So countries can, bring the dogs in through Vancouver port. I think that's been done.
Good luck with that.
But they can't go to the United States, from there because there's a ban, right? So, and they'll know the dog is from China or from Cambodia or from another country on the list. And so that means,
The health certificates will follow that dog. The health and it's not going to get
no,
they can't
that's
do
it. They'll know. And so that means us Canadians, we're a smaller market, right? We're not as big as the US. So it's hard to find adoptive families in Canada enough to justify the cost of those flights, because cargo flights, as I understand, they're extremely expensive. It's on average 45,000 US just to fly for one pallet, I was told.
Yeah. But if you're talking about cargo dogs coming individually through cargo, it's anywhere from 750 to 1,000 a dog.
Okay, I thought it was more.
No, I know everybody thinks it's more, and
maybe the word on the street has it that it's more conveniently.
Yeah, so that the groups that are sending them through cargo can put a little juice.
I see,
they get a little juice out of that. So no, it's about, and I've seen it actually even less. I've seen it 650 to 1,000, depending on the weight of the dog.
Yeah.
Right? Everything depends on the weight of the dog and the airline. So Korean Air, Asiana. Normally it's about $650 to $1,000 depending on the weight, and it goes by.
Wow. And you all this, so it's really good that we're speaking with you. Taiwan, I don't believe is on the list either.
No, but Taiwan right now, there's no place that you could bring dogs into Taiwan, and not to transport them to the U.S. It would be. Yeah. Taiwan has very strict laws on animal importation.
Yeah.
Because you're an island, basically.
Yeah, no, it's a small island. So
yeah, so there's very strict importations, and I was part of a group that got dog meat banned in Taiwan, and years ago. It's been about 5 years now, that we went in and videotaped some things that were going on with dogs and cats, and presented it at the time to the president of the country, the premier, and she got it banned in Taiwan.
Wow. Can you say which group this is, or are they still in existence, or?
My group, but I can't tell you.
Oh, okay. Canine Global Rescue.
It was a predecessor of Canine Global Rescue.
So. Okay. But I think it was in 2014 that they enacted a ban, or was it earlier than that?
It was 2014. But but it was coming into effect. The ban came in on 2014, but actually didn't come into place until 2018.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right about that. Yeah.
Right. The ban didn't actually happen. We're going to do it.
Yeah.
It got passed, and then 2018 was the actual ban.
Okay. So at this point, what would you? I don't know if you have any recommendations for the organizations that are rescuing dogs in those countries on the list, and also the ones that adopted a survivor that is still in those countries, and at this point they gave maybe their adoption fee over, and now they're looking at not getting their dog for another year maybe.
I don't think they'll get their dog.
My God.
If they are not out of the country by July 14th and July 13th, actually.
Right.
If it gets here on July 14th, it may be turned around. It may not survive.
Well, are you okay with just a few more minutes? Because I know that I scheduled an hour with you, so we're
I'm fine.
Okay.
We can take questions too, so whatever.
Yes, exactly. I looked at the chat box, but not any questions. Some comments. Someone saying hello to Jon. Anne Marie, hi Anne Marie. So why don't CDC create a list of certified organizations in each country so CDC can be confident about the animals that are brought in by those organizations? So it comes back to what we were discussing.
Right, and they can't do it for another country. They can only do it for our country.
Yeah.
If certified, maybe there would have to be documentation that would have to be certifying an individual organization in the United States, which would have to be a 501c3, or it would have to be certified by the CDC to import animals, and that's one of the things I think that they're looking at. But what are the guidelines that are going to determine the rules set out for that? Who gets certified and who doesn't, right? Because HSI, Humane Society, because they're so big and they've got such a great name, do they get it? Does who's going to be certified?
Yeah. And that'll be based on records. I mean, they'll have to prove that,
How do you prove? What do you, where
well, like we were saying, if you can prove, like yourself, your organization could prove that we've never flown a sick dog. We've always done it, everything by the book.
I can say it.
Yeah. Well, you can also prove it because you have probably, records of,
We do.
Yeah. So bottom line, yes, it would be a great idea. Unfortunately, they're not taking public consultation. So not much that we can say, except maybe start a petition and say, CDC, does it add pressure to an organization like CDC? Do they even look at it? No, not worth the time.
The only place that's going to come from is the politicians.
Yeah,
not
exactly.
It has to be politician.
Yes. Okay. So maybe that's something Americans could do.
If they could write their congressman or their senator and they go from there, that's where the pressure has to come from. Because just doing a petition in the United States isn't going to work.
No, they need it to come from an official, an authority. Yeah. Okay. So it's something we could do for viewers at home. That's a great suggestion. I'm not in America. I'm in Canada, but I think that's something I would definitely do. And last but not least, I thought we could take this opportunity to discuss another topic that is, has been on my mind for a bit, because when I started the podcast in late 2019, one of my first guests was James Chai of Arf Arf Bark Bark Foundation, located in Vancouver. And he told me during that podcast, I had no idea of this before. He told me that there was actually cases of dog meat in Canada. And actually one of them was reported in the news a few years ago. It was a couple in Alberta. And apparently their neighbor would hear a dog scream and suddenly it would go silent. And so at one point the next day, they knocked on their door and they said, "What happened to your dog? Like he was barking, and then it just went silent." And the couple said, "Oh, well, we killed him." I guess the couple was from a Asian country, and we have great immigration policies in Canada, and they brought that tradition with them. And they actually invited the couple in their apartment and they showed them their kitchen. They had rabbits in cages, they had dogs in cages. And the couple was appalled and shocked, and they called the police. And then the police said, there's no law against this. This is their own personal consumption. There's no law that prevents anyone from killing and eating their dog or cat. As long as you're not selling it to the public, there's no problem with that.
There is in the United States now.
Yes, exactly. So at the time when I had James on the show, he was also wanting to promote the petition that he started to the Canadian government to try to pass a similar law, because we all know in the States, There was HR 6720 that makes it illegal
Correct.
to slaughter, consume dogs and cats. But it doesn't mean that it still is not happening in the US. And so
what I'd like to have is a hotline, because I know what's happening. I know that there are instances that have been reported to us in different states. And I would love to have a hotline that doesn't go to the government, because quite honestly, we know what's going to happen if it goes to the government. Or the local police. We know what's happening there.
Yeah.
This needs to be resolved in a different manner.
Yes, exactly.
And so it needs to be resolved, like I said, in a different manner that does not involve the police or the authorities, because it won't get resolved.
It'll get ignored.
It will get ignored, and it will continue. And so sometimes it has to be done in a different way.
Yeah. So, we'll leave it at that. But
and believe me, if anybody knows or comes across this,
yes,
then I would hope that they could rely on Canine Global Rescue to share the information with us and provide us detailed information.
This is what's important, because I happen to know of a situation here in Montreal, but you need more than just like, oh, I heard a story. You need proof. You need concrete proof. You need eyewitnesses.
That's right. I need concrete proof. And yes, we've investigated before, and it turned out that it wasn't. Although the animals were being abused, they weren't being slaughtered. But at the same time, that was a reportable offense as well.
Yes.
But I would encourage anybody to, if as long as there is definitive proof of some sort, the government's not going to stop it. Come to us, let us know.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's worth a try, because if you call your local SPCA, chances are they don't have necessarily the manpower. They might not take you seriously, because a lot of people are not aware of such practices. And I know personally, I've spoken to some fellow activists in Montreal, and they were all very doubtful. They were like, is this a hoax? Is this like a crazy story that someone's trying to spread? But I would say that we all know animal cruelty happens every day. It would be no surprise to me that this is happening. However, I was not an eyewitness on this situation, so therefore I did report it to my local SPCA with as much information as possible. I'm not too hopeful, but it's...
Well, look, those groups are not confrontational. Okay, they have specific guidelines that they have to follow.
Yeah,
I don't. My group.
No, you can operate a bit outside of those.
We're not gonna. We can be confrontational, and we can do what is necessary to stop it. And that's what we do in Korea. That's what we've done in China, and that's what we've done in other countries, Cambodia and Thailand. We will go outside of the lines, because it's the only way that you can stop it.
Yeah.
And the same thing applies back to the CDC. You have to take the necessary steps to stop it, so that we can all continue forward to rescue the animals, so that this doesn't become a permanent ban.
Yeah.
And it's the same type of thing. I'm willing to go after groups that are taking advantage of this, and to expose those groups for what they are and stop it, so that we and other organizations
will pay the price for that. Yeah,
that we can move forward and continue to save dogs.
Is there anything people at home can do, like to try to get the truth out? Like, I mean, you haven't mentioned names, and obviously you probably don't want to at this stage.
I've mentioned names, Jake, but here's the problem. I mention a name, those groups, they get their minions to come after us.
We've all seen it happen.
It happens all the time. So I'm not going to mention names because of that. And at the same time, they know all too well what they're doing, but they have these followers who believe what they're doing.
They believe their story.
And they believe their story because they're out there saving
blindly.
dogs, and it's like you have no idea what this group is
Uh,
about. And people are finding out on their own, but it still isn't fast enough. And at the same time, I'm not going to name because I don't need to have them come after us. I worry about other things. I worry about
yeah,
saving. I worry about
yeah.
closing the meat market, the slaughterhouses and the farms. I don't need another group that's
I completely agree with you on that. And if I could just add a personal note on that, because I have not been part of this, animal rights activist movement for very long, only since 2018, really. And it was because of the dog cat meat trade. It really tore me apart when I heard about this, and I saw the images and the videos, and it just it's impossible to unhear it. It's impossible to unknow it. So I felt compelled to do something. And we all know Animal Hope and Wellness Foundation has been the subject of much controversy and much attacks, social media attacks, and witch hunting. And it's very sad because now they've crippled that organization, and they've done so much good work. And I'm sorry, you cannot base your judgment on rumors or hearsay or such and such is saying it's true. It must be true. Like fact check, like use your own judgment and stop jumping on these bandwagons, because it's scary to think that a small group of people on social media can destroy a nonprofit.
well, they can, and that's why I've known Mark Ching for a very long time, and I've known all the rumors and everything that's gone on, and destroying a group, not just the individual, but the group.
Yeah, the group. Yeah.
So it's like someone coming after me personally.
Yeah.
But it destroys the group at the same time.
Yeah, because you're the faith, you're the image, you're the group,
That's right.
Yeah.
So, but anyway.
And I'm not saying that he's perfect. Yeah, he's done mistakes. We all make mistakes, but to come after someone like that is just disgraceful, and it's just should not be happening. So that's my little rant.
Those lines, just so you know, we had 3 years ago, we had an incident where somebody came after us, not knowing anything or what happened. And I said to some of the people who were donating to us, I sent their money back to them. I said, you know what? I said,
if you're not confident in us, like
money, you know what you're reading is completely false. And in order for me to prove that here's your money back. I don't even want to see you ever again. You're going to spread rumors and do all this stuff, and you're going to buy into what is being said on social media from
we don't want your money. Yeah.
People who've never been on a dog meat farm, people who've never been in a slaughterhouse, people who've never seen the actual acts that are happening.
Exactly.
And then you're going
judge
rumor because this other organization thinks that we're taking money out of their pocket. Okay, you know what? Here, take that money. You go give it to them and go.
Yeah, go away, please. Our job is hard enough, as is. We don't need to put up with that. Absolutely. Lastly, I don't know if you're able to give us some updates on this upcoming, very highly anticipated film, Dog War, in which you are featured. They basically filmed you going to South Korea, disrupting the trade, and everyone's so looking forward to seeing this film. Any news on that? Like, are they in the final stages of production at this point?
They are in the final stages of editing and securing the financing that pushes that forward. So yes, I can report that things are very positive. That and again, I have no investment in this. This is not,
no vested interest other than somebody decided to.
I allowed them to follow us around, and to go with us. And they're getting all sides of. It's a documentary, which is unbiased and trying to get all the sides and put it together. But I believe I can say that they've secured the final financing.
Yeah.
And just waiting for it to hit their account right now. But they have moved forward with it, and hopefully it will be
2022.
no. Oh no. I think if everything goes well, I mean, the actual release would be 2022, but I think that it would be completed, previewed, everything, probably pretty much, September, October, November, in that area. And then final edits made after it's previewed and then released in 2022.
Oh my God, I'm so looking forward to that film because it's
I've gotten gray since they started it.
Oh my God, if they started it in 1999, no, we're kidding. 2018, I believe, is when they started.
Yes.
2019 more?
2017, actually.
Oh, okay. It's so
I
long.
literally have gone gray since.
Oh my God. Okay? It's all those trips to South Korea that's put those grays on you.
That does it to you.
But I have to say, a lot of people don't realize how much work goes into a film like this, and we're not talking about blockbuster budget here, but it's still quite the undertaking. And, you need professional editors, professional cutters, and,
just logistics of where we were, the farms, the markets, all this. That's a lot. It's a big project. So.
And the topic might not interest some funders, let's be honest. A lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to get into that kind of issue. Right. It's not something I want to be a part of. You don't know, is it going to be really successful? They're always thinking about the bottom line, the profits. Right. But this film is a film that was done with such heart. And the whole goal is just to expose the realities of dogs in South Korea. And it's,
and I don't know a lot of documentary filmmakers who are in it for the money.
No, let's be honest.
They were. No. They're not making money on this stuff, I'll tell you that.
No, oh, no. It's a labor of love. Right. And we can't wait to watch you on the big screen. I mean, the big screen, I guess, Netflix, whatever.
I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to perceive it going back and seeing some of the things that we've had to do.
And I guess that's it. He has to be discerning about what can be shown, what can't be shown, to try to get as big of an audience as possible. You don't want to shock too many people, right? So you have to be.
I've shown people the trailer and they couldn't watch that.
Oh, so. Wow. Yeah, some people are just, they're not prepared. And I understand, because it's, once you've seen it, can't unsee it. And it's pretty harsh,
How else do you get it out? How else do you communicate? You could be lying about what's actually happening.
Yeah.
Then that becomes a reality.
It's important because sometimes you have to be shocked into reality. You have to know how bad it is to want to make a difference, And if you think in your mind, it's like the animal agriculture industry. People believe the campaigns, the happy cow on the carton of milk. Well, the happy cow might not be so happy, but it appeases their conscience and allows them to continue their habits, and change is never easy. But, if we have it in our hearts, a love for animals, it's up to us to make a difference for them, up to all of us. So amen to that.
Well, hopefully that cleared up some information. Hopefully we'll look forward to the CDC issuing a new statement,
yes,
new guidelines, and hopefully they will look at groups and not look at groups as individuals, because that's what they're doing right now. And individuals, yes, it is a problem when individuals, if they're not authorized, if they're not, certified, and that's the word I'm going to use.
Yeah.
We want to be certified as an organization to bring animals in we comply by certain rules and regulations.
And you're in talks with the CDC, so hopefully we can make that happen. And any news obviously will be shared. You're going to share it with us. And I guess for people at home, if you want to try to help, revise the ban, maybe not eliminate it, but revise it, then please do contact your congressman, your local politicians, and try to go through those channels, because they will have the weight, needed.
He doesn't care about a petition.
Yeah, no, exactly. It has to come from government officials. Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely. Well, with all that, it wraps up our first ever live podcast. So thank you so much, Jon. You've been so gracious with your time. I always appreciate speaking with you. And we'll continue to follow you. And people at home, another request maybe is please donate to Canine Global Rescue, because they are doing the hard work. These are legitimate people. They do everything by the book, and they need to continue being able to do what they do. And they do it for the love of animals. So we need to support that.
Thank you, dude. Appreciate it.
All right. You take